In the first month of 2023, it was announced that James Gunn would be tasked with the responsibility of rebooting the DC Universe. This of course comes after a disastrous run of releases from DC and Warner Brothers that led to many people, myself included, thinking that DC's reputation was ruined beyond repair. It is now exactly 3.5 years later, and we are now 2 movies and 2 shows into this universe. And while it did start off on a very high note with 2025 Superman, I believe we are now at a point where the warning signs are beginning to show and the cracks in the inherent structure of Gunn's universe are clearer than ever. So let's talk about it. Let me begin this video by making it very clear that my intention is not to kick down a cinematic universe that is only 1 year old. I am definitely excited for what the future holds, but this excitement is matched with an equal amount of skepticism. If we want to compare the beginning of Gunn's universe to the beginning of Zack Snyder's universe, I do think there's a clear general tone with the DCU, and I don't think I even need to mention just how much better the quality of the films has been up until now. But there's a shocking lack of direction with the current DC universe. I do believe that rebooting the DC franchise immediately after the DCU was releasing piles of shit every year was setting yourself up for failure, financially at least, as these films left such a poor taste in audiences' minds that was impossible to get rid of in such a short period of time. But the way the cinematic universe has been structured is definitely not helping. Starting off with Superman is the perfect move. You present your audience with the face of your franchise right off the bat, a character we haven't seen star in a solo film on the big screen for over a decade. And most important of all, you made sure that it's actually good. You have played all of your cards right and set yourself up for further success. It's hard to mess up from here, but somehow Warner Bros. Have done it yet again. What came after Superman was Supergirl. Now, putting aside what you think of this film, whether you hate it, whether you love it, it is not the type of movie you introduce a universe with, not even on paper. The start of a franchise is its most sensitive point. You need to prove to audiences why they should care and keep coming back. The standard way to do this is to introduce your heavy hitters as fast as you can. Characters like Batman, Wonder Woman, and even The Flash should all be prioritized over a character like Supergirl. We can excuse one mistake though. One step in the wrong direction is not nearly enough to kill off hype for a mega project like this. But for some fuck-ass reason you decide to follow this up with a Clayface movie. I will admit that this movie does look promising, and I do really want it to end up being good. But its mere existence leaves us with so many more questions than answers in regard to the DCU. Films like Clayface and Supergirl are the type of movies you should be making 9 to 10 years into your cinematic universe, not in the very beginning. To put this into perspective, can you imagine if Marvel began their cinematic universe just like they did with Iron Man? Then instead of following it up with The Incredible Hulk or the first Avenger, they instead opted for an Ironheart movie. And if that wasn't confusing enough, they proceed to follow that up with a solo film that focuses on Flint Marko's Sandman. Makes zero sense, right? James Gunn has always been fascinated by C-tier characters. His most notable work throughout his entire career has been introducing the Guardians of the Galaxy to the MCU. But you can't let personal interest get in the way of a cinematic universe like this in a very sensitive time period. The reason I'm bringing this up right now is because James Gunn has come out publicly and made it very clear that introducing Supergirl and Clayface this early into a cinematic universe was never the intention, but that the scripts that were presented to him were apparently so exceptional that he felt inclined to make the movies as fast as possible. For your information, Mike Flanagan, who is the director and writer behind Clayface, is a world-renowned horror specialist. He has previously worked on many hits in the horror genre, and he has been pushing Warner Bros. To make a Clayface movie for well over 6 years now. But the executives have never shown any interest into adding it to their cinematic universe. However, as soon as Gunn arrives, he falls in love with the idea of bringing such a niche character to light. Look, don't get me wrong. Clayface could end up being the best movie of all time and win all the Oscars and Golden Globes, but my point would still stand. The general audience has no idea who Clayface is, and if his film were to succeed, it would be because of how hot the horror genre has been at the moment, not because people associate the character to DC Comics. And when you look into the release schedule for upcoming DCU projects, this concern goes from bad to worse. If the general audience does not know who Clayface is, do you really think they will fall head over heels for Jimmy Olsen and Amanda Waller? The catastrophic failure of Supergirl should already cue the warning signs for DC. But once you've already made the commitment to C-tier characters like these guys, it's hard for you to do anything about it. It has been stated that the earliest possible release date for the DCU's Batman movie is 2029. So you have essentially dug yourself into a hole that will take you a minimum of 4 years to get out of. Again, I hate to compare this universe to the MCU because it is unfair, but in the MCU's first 4 years, we already had all the major characters established in their own solo projects and joined together in the Avengers. You could point towards many factors causing the disastrous failure of Supergirl, but superhero fatigue is definitely not one of them. We have literally just seen Spider-Man Brand New Day make more in 4 days than the last 3 DC movies in a combined 125 days. That's just crazy. There will always be a market for these films if the audience feels like they are worth seeing. We then also have the case of the DCU making the same mistake that its predecessor made 10 years ago. It was reported that 2 cuts of Supergirl were made, a studio cut and a director's cut, with the director's cut being around 11 minutes longer and giving much more focus to the main antagonist. The studio, of course, did eventually end up going for their own cut, which is the same exact scenario 2016 Suicide Squad was put under. And I'm sure we all know how that turned out. Studio interference is a large part of what killed off the DCEU, so it is upsetting to see the same mistakes being made not too long after. This is really all I have to say for now. Maybe we will revisit this topic in 2 years' time to see how well this video ages, but I do believe that there is valid reason to be concerned about what the future of DC holds. I am a huge fan of DC and the superhero genre in general, and firmly believe that DC is long overdue the successful universe that it rightfully deserves. But only time will tell if my wish will be granted. I do not plan on continuing to make videos on this channel. This was just a one-off idea that I felt like should be addressed, so I would like to thank you for listening to what I have to say.